Jason Howard.
So you may be familiar with the world-famous board game Risk as the game of world domination, but the truth is it's actually the game of social devastation, because you are more likely to end a friendship playing a game of Risk than you are to end playing a game of Risk. And I learned about the powerful destructive force that this game holds over the human psyche in middle school, because it was a summer camp sleepover gone awry before the game even began because we had the wrong colored dice. And this set off a kid named Joel because he refused to play unless we had red dice. And when we said, "We don't really care," Joel began to cry. Literal sobbing tears, and he said we were being mean and that we were breaking all the rules, and then he called his mom to come pick him up at 1 a.m. So I didn't touch Risk again until 2003, and this is when I was at the ranch. See, when I was 17, despite being completely straight edge, my parents transferred over my custody to a transitional living facility in the mountains of New Mexico as part of the troubled teen industry. So, despite the fact that I never did any drugs, I had failed Jewish history, and I found myself for 8 months living with actual thieves, drug addicts, and murderers. And in phase 1, we had a very strictly enforced 10 p.m. lights out curfew bedtime. And my personal rebellion was to negotiate with the security guard for some after hours board game privileges. And my roommates at the time were the Birdman, RJ, and Mikey. Now, Birdman was an Eminem wannabe. If you put in early 2000s poser into ChatGPT, it will give you a picture of him, I promise. RJ was the real deal. He was a former meth addict, a former meth dealer, and a self-admitted killer, and now he was my bunkmate. And last but not least was Mikey. And we didn't have the words for this at the time, but looking back, I'm 100% sure that Mikey was on the autism spectrum. He had difficulty maintaining eye contact. His emotions were muted. His social skills were non-existent. And the staff had no idea how to engage with someone who was neurodivergent, so it was a crime that he found himself at this place. But while Mikey did not have a drug or alcohol addiction, he did have an addiction to computers, and he would sneak out overnight to break into the computer lab, where he was discovered one morning because he had left tracks in the snow, and they found him on 4 computers simultaneously, 3 playing video games and 1 watching porn. So, this was the crew that I had assembled before me for my return to Risk. And we began the game, so we're ahead of the curve when it comes to sleepover camp. But the problem is that Mikey was very good at games. And he was also a very bad winner. He was the kind of person who was arrogant and haughty and a very sore sport. And tonight was the night that Birdman and RJ decided, we're gonna take this motherfucker down a peg. So we're midway through the game, and they decide to start cheating with impunity, denying it at every step, and it drove Mikey insane. Because they're lying, they're stealing, they're colluding, they're basically defrauding, and they're winning. And Mikey is staring down the possibility of a future that he never prepared for, which is that he might lose a game. And we get to the point where he's down to 1 piece left on the board. There's 1 turn left. He's now standing. His eyes are in a dead stare. He's holding the dice, looking down. And instead of rolling the dice, Mikey decides to rage quit. And I hear a scream blood-curdling and guttural, emerge from this man who I had never heard display an emotion before as he throws the dice as hard as he possibly can, literally flips the board, and starts physically disassembling it while screaming, "You're liars! And you're cheats! And I should win! And I should win!" And they're just on the floor rolling with laughter until he says, "You're just a couple of convicts." At which point the temperature changes. RJ gets right in his face and is looking for a fight and says, "I'm going to kill you," and it's not an empty threat, and is begging Mikey to hit him, to give him an excuse. At which point the security guard runs in, gives me a look like, "What the hell, man? I thought you had this under control." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, I made a mistake." And he pulls them apart, and the scene ends with RJ being physically restrained, frothing at the mouth, just screaming, "Fucker, fucker, fucker," over and over again, while Mikey turns into a blank slate, sits, stares at the wall, and stays there the entire night. Suffice it to say, board game night was a thing of the past. I learned my lesson, though. This night happened 22 years ago, and I will never play Risk again.